families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome to another broadcast edition of Focal Point, brand new broadcast edition of Focal Point on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name, your congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent host, as always. And glad to have you in the conversation. Obviously missing from our chorus here in the Focal Point Theater is our producer, Jeff Reed, taking some time off. He'll be back in the saddle middle of next week. Programming note, I'm going to be filling in for Abraham Hamilton III today on the Hamilton Corner. So stick around until 5 o'clock. Same place you're listening to me right now. Stick around. I'll be back on at 5. Pick up the slack for Abraham Hamilton, and he should be back in studio tomorrow. All right, let's turn our attention as we begin the program to the Word of God, as we characteristically do. Start with the content that comes straight from the Word and the heart and the mind of God. Now, we are in Daniel 11 in our reading and prayer today. A couple of things, just doubling back on what we covered yesterday in Daniel chapter 9. There's an incredible prophecy here that I don't want you to miss. And I kind of hurried through it yesterday, so it might not have been absolutely clear what's going on. But what Daniel 9 says is this. Know therefore, this is 9:25, know therefore that from the going out of the word to restore and rebuild Jerusalem to the coming of the Anointed One, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, total of 69 weeks. From the time that the word goes out to rebuild Jerusalem, according to Nehemiah 2:1, that happened under Artaxerxes. Remember, Nehemiah got the authorization to go back and rebuild the city of Jerusalem. The gates were broken down. The walls have been burned with fire, or the walls are broken down. The gates have been burned with fire. So from that moment, that decree was issued about March 4, 445 B.C. Now track with me here. So the authorization, the decree to rebuild Jerusalem goes out, the one that Daniel's referring to here, goes out on March 4th, 445 BC. And the prophecy of Daniel says 69 weeks, and they're talking about weeks of years, so 483 years later, after 69 weeks of years, the Anointed One will come. At that point, the coming of the Anointed One is what is going to happen. Well, if you add up the 69 weeks of years using the lunar calendar, which they used at the time, that's 173,880 days. If you start on March 4th, 445 BC, you count 173,880 days, you come out at March 30th, 33 AD, which was the date of the triumphal entry of Christ into Jerusalem. I mean, that prophecy right to the day. And then Daniel says after that week, he will be cut off, and then there's going to be a 70th week after that. But I don't want you to miss the significance of that really profound prophetic word. God obviously is the one who is in charge of history. Now in chapter 10, you know, if you go to Ephesians 6, and let me just read the words of Ephesians 6 for you. This will be familiar to you. But a lot of people think the spiritual warfare, as we think of it today, is just a matter for the New Testament. But this is what Paul says in Ephesians 6. You're familiar with this. Put on the whole armor of God in Ephesians 6, that you may be able to stand against the schemes or the strategies, the methods, literally, of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Paul says that's what we're up against. We are not up against flesh and blood. We're up against these dark demonic powers that are called rulers, that are called authorities, that are called cosmic powers, that are called the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Now, with that as a backdrop, listen to Daniel chapter 10, verses 12 through 14. Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before God, your words have been heard. Daniel had been praying for 3 weeks. Your words have been heard, and I, this figure, this divine being, says, I believe it was a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. Christ came in response to Daniel's prayer. I have come because of your words. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. That's why I haven't been able to get here. I've been engaged myself in spiritual warfare with the prince of Persia, not the king of Persia, which is the human ruler, but the prince of Persia, which is the spiritual ruler over the country, over the kingdom, over the nation of Persia. So that's an indication that there are demonic powers that have assignments against entire nations. We've got, I'm guessing, a host of demonic powers assigned against God's purposes in the United States of America. And I was withstood by Satan, by the prince of Persia, for 21 days. But Michael, one of the chief princesses, this is a good guy, princes, he is an archangel, so he is a member of the Lord's heavenly host, the armies of the heavens, a powerful, powerful warring angel. Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. That's the only reason I was able to make it through the battalions of demonic spirits and come to be with you and speak with you today, Daniel. And then he says down in verse 20, then he said, do you know why I have come to you? But now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. And remember, this is the kingdom of Persia. The kingdom that was going to follow in world history was the kingdom of Greece, established by Alexander the Great. And so there was a prince of Greece, not the human king Alexander, but a demonic prince that would be there to assist the purposes of Satan in carrying out Satan's purposes in the kingdom of Greece. Right, well, let's take some of these concepts and we'll weave some other things from chapter 10 into our prayer. Let's go to prayer. Father, I pray that all of us, for myself, for my family, for the listening audience of Focal Point, for our elected officials, including our president, President Trump, I pray that we may see you with the eyes of our spirit, as Daniel saw you, and as the Apostle John saw you. In your glorified humanity, your face is like lightning, your eyes like flaming torches, your arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and your voice like the sound of a multitude. We know that if we were to see you as you truly are, we too would have no strength left in us and would tremble and be helpless in your presence. We worship you as our sovereign Lord. I pray that you will cause us to be people of prayer and fasting as Daniel was. I pray that we will set our minds to gain understanding and to consider carefully the words of your scripture. May we humble ourselves before you and believe that you will hear our prayers and respond to them because of your mercy. May we be highly esteemed and greatly loved in your eyes. Please touch us and give us strength that we may have peace and be of good courage. I pray that we will fear no man and no thing. Lord Jesus, we read here of the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece, powerful demonic principalities with assignments against entire countries. Make us aware of the spiritual battle that rages in the unseen world over our church, our city, and our nation. We ask that your warring angels, those great princes assigned to protect our people, would be given power and authority to defeat those dark lords in battle, that your will may be done on earth as it is in heaven. Show us what our part is in engaging in this great spiritual battle for the soul of our city and nation. I pray that, like Daniel, our prayers will be effective in releasing the power of your warring angels to carry out your purposes, and that your will be done on earth in our land as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, a couple of other updates from the religious liberty front. There's a school in New Jersey that's under pressure because they have had an official policy of allowing Muslims to interrupt classes to convert students. Now, can you imagine if somebody even suggested this with regard to Christianity? This is Memorial High School in New Jersey. Imagine that the Fellowship of Christian Athletes came to this Memorial High School and said, we would like to have the opportunity and the freedom to interrupt classes so that we can convert them to Jesus Christ. But that same privilege denied the Christians being extended to these Muslim groups. There are 2 district-sponsored Ramadan posters in Memorial High School. One of them says, warm greetings from Memorial High School and wishes students to have a blessed Ramadan. You realize how much trouble schools get in for just saying Merry Christmas or even having their calendar marked with Christmas holiday? Here is the school wishing Muslim students a blessed Ramadan. Here's another poster in the school. May Allah continue to shower you with love and wisdom. You realize what happens when Christian students or groups say, we would like to put a poster in the hallway that says, may God bless you in the name of Jesus Christ. But yet Muslims can do it in the name of Allah. May Allah, blessing in the name of Allah. May Allah continue to shower you with love and wisdom. Now what that is, ladies and gentlemen, that's just inviting demonic power into that school. Allah's not God. He's a demon. Allah's a demon god. And so when you ask Allah to shower students with love and wisdom, you are inviting the powers of darkness to come in to your school. And this is an ongoing issue in schools all over the country. Here's a school in Bothell, Washington. They promoted a policy change sponsored by CARE. That's the Council on American Islamic Relations. Listen to this. This is what this policy directs happen. Now, it hasn't been adopted yet by this school, but they're looking at it. The school directs teachers to create safe spaces for Muslims, to plan with Muslim students to let them quietly slip away from class for prayer, privately offer information about nutrition during their Ramadan fast, and give a lesson on Ramadan, and privately ask Muslim students what accommodations they want. So that may be going on in Bothell, Washington, before you know it. Now, here's your Religion of Peace update. Remember, we've said repeatedly, Islam is not, despite what you've been told, a religion of peace. It is a religion of war and violence and death. Here's the latest update from the Religion of Peace. Open Doors USA has this story. 95 Christians were killed in Mali. An attack in Mali. 95 Christians, men, women, and children. A third of this village was massacred by Fulani Muslim militants. So this is from Mali. This is the latest update from the Religion of Peace. A third of the village slaughtered in the name of Allah. All right, well, let's turn our attention to the content that we want to get to today. I have a special guest at the bottom of the hour, Dr. John Oswalt. He is a professor of theology. He's got some observations on why America is in the shape that it's in. I think you will want to listen to that interview with Dr. John Oswalt. That's coming up at 1:30. We'll be right back. Focal Point, American Family Radio. Stay with us.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. What is the proper role of government? Romans chapter 13 outlines government's function, and it is basically this: to restrain or to punish wickedness and to reward righteousness. Government was never intended to be our savior. Government is our servant. As we focus on our civil occupations and our civic engagement responsibilities, let us never forget that government is not our God. We don't put our trust in it. We put our trust in our Christ. As a result, what we want is a government that stays out of our way and leaves room for our church to do our business of fulfilling the Great Commission.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Dr. Richard Land, President of Southern Evangelical Seminary. Welcome to Bringing Every Thought Captive. I attended a meeting last Sunday night to discuss a mission effort in the Yorkshire area of Great Britain. Why Britain? Because only 1% of Britons go to church on a regular basis. Great Britain is about as post-Christian as you can get. The pastor talked about the mood of moral bleakness and despair in England. He flashed a photo on the screen of a sign above a urinal in a public restroom in northern England, which declared that every day 84 men in Britain commit suicide. That's over 30,000 men a year who are killing themselves in Britain. That's horrendous, terrible, and tragic. If we had the same rate of suicide in America, given the population differential, that would mean 150,000 men a year committing suicide. Why? Despair. Atheism and agnosticism are rampant. No hope, no meaning, no purpose. As Pascal once said, there is in man a God-shaped vacuum which only God can fill. When men abandon God, hopelessness and tragedy follow. And this despair impacts all levels of society. According to Time magazine, 6 out of the 7 of the Conservative Party candidates to be the next Prime Minister of Great Britain acknowledged having used illicit and illegal drugs in the past. I pastored in England in the 1970s. England's about 30 years ahead of the United States. We're on the same trajectory, and the answer in Britain and America and everywhere is Jesus. This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. You know, I don't think I've got any highlights from last night's Democrat debate. You remember seeing one on here, Rob?
No.
I just don't think I do. Oh, yeah. Clip number 3. No. Now, I don't know. I'm looking to see if I got one question or one soundbite from last night's Democrat debate.
Castro.
Yeah,
7.
Clip number 7. The reason I don't have any highlights from the Democrat debate is that there were none. I mean, Donald Trump's assessment of the Democrat debate was one word: it's boring. I could not agree more. But let's pick up clip number 7. This is Julian Castro. He, by all accounts, did well last night. Elizabeth Warren apparently did well. Tulsi Gabbard won the Drudge Report's online poll. I mean, that's completely unofficial. But the Drudge folks that watched liked her. She won like 42% of the vote. Elizabeth Warren was down there at about 14%. Elizabeth Warren is up by substantial margins in regressive polls. MoveOn.org, they've got her up by 20 points over Bernie and Joe Biden. She apparently did not have that great a night in the view of even left-wing critics. Started off with a blaze and then kind of burned out. Beto O'Rourke is done. He is toast. He just absolutely savaged last night by critics. So he's like a Roman candle, up like a rocket, down like a rock. I think you can safely stick a fork in Bobby Francis O'Rourke. He's done. He's out of there. He's in the archives. Cory Booker fighting to stay alive. Apparently he had some success last night in the minds of critics. So here's the only soundbite I've got from last night's debate. Here is Julian Castro on the subject of abortion and who ought to have rights to taxpayer-funded abortions. Listen to this.
Yes, it would. I don't believe only in reproductive freedom. I believe in reproductive justice. And, what that means is that just because a woman, or let's also not forget, someone in the trans community, a trans female, is poor, doesn't mean they shouldn't have that right to choose. And so I absolutely would cover the right to have an abortion.
Okay, that's breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Julian Castro, who wants to be the next president of the United States, says that men should have a right to abortion and will have a right to abortion under his administration. When he's talking about trans females, that's a woman. I mean, that's a man who thinks that he is a woman. And Julian Castro wants men, transvestites, who think they are women, wants them to have abortion rights as well. All right, let's grab clip number 1. This is Giannis Adetokounmpo. I don't know how to say his name exactly. Adetokounmpo. He was the MVP in the NBA this year. And here is an excerpt from his speech last night at the NBA Awards where he's crediting people who he thinks have made it possible for him to be the NBA's MVP. Let's listen.
First of all, I want to thank God for blessing me with this amazing talent. I wouldn't, be in this position that I am today. Man, wait, hold on. Okay. So. I want to thank God for putting me in this amazing position that I am today. Everything I do it through Him, and I'm extremely blessed. And I realize that. So I want to thank God. I want to thank my dad. Obviously, my dad is not here with me, but. 2 years ago, I had the goal in my head that I'm going to be the best player in the league. I'm going to do whatever it takes to help my team win, and I'm going to win the MVP. And
all right, so that is the MVP of the NBA, Giannis Adetokounmpo, thanking God and then thanking his father for his success. Now, very quickly, this is clip number 2. Now, the video here, which you can't see, obviously, you'll just have to hear. These are the police called to a incident on the highway. Some people in a house heard crying, thought it was a wild animal, went out and found a bundle, a plastic bag with something in it. It turns out it was a baby. Here's how the body cam on the police officer, here's how the audio went.
How did you hear it? We heard it from our house. Oh, yeah? Now, my kid said it's a baby. I said it's an animal. Like, finally got me up here. We did find it. Right under here. Oh, look at the precious thing. All right. All right. 2283. Oh, look at you, sweetheart. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, look at you. Breathing, crying, trying to comfort. Oh.
That's where
Oh, look how precious you are. Yeah. Look who's here.
open it up.
We need
Here. Clamp. Baby girl.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
She's a
sweetheart.
And what you heard there, that's how a Christian nation responds to an abandoned baby. With sympathy, with compassion, with protection. All I got to say is it's a good thing that Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, was not there. He would have said, okay, we've made it comfortable. We've wrapped it in a blanket. All right. I want to ask everybody, do we kill it or do we let it live? That's what Ralph Northam wants to do with newborn babies. All right, I want to welcome to our Focal Point studio, live and in person, Dr. John Oswalt. Dr. Oswalt, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Thank you.
Dr. Oswalt has a master's degree and a PhD from Brandeis University, visiting distinguished professor of Old Testament. So he knows the Bible, knows the Word of God, is an ordained minister in the United Methodist Church. He's the author of 11 books, one of which I'm holding in my hands right now. Title of the book is Called to be Holy, A Biblical Perspective. So again, Dr. Oswalt, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, you just heard this soundbite, Dr. Oswalt, that we played about the police finding this abandoned baby wrapped up in a plastic sack and discarded by the side of a highway. And it sort of, raises the larger question of where we are at as a nation and how did we get here and what's the way out. I know you've thought about these issues, so help us see things from your perspective. How do we get here and what's the problem?
Well, honestly, I think we got here because as a church, we have failed. We have, in the last 60 years, the evangelical church has come to the forefront. Used to be when the media talked about the church, they were talking about the old line main denominations. Now, when they're talking about the church, they're talking about us, the evangelicals. And I think after World War II, we had a tremendous opportunity to change the direction of the nation, to enable people to understand that to be a Christian meant you were transformed. You looked at the world in a different way. You thought about reality in a different way. But I'm afraid what we did is we said, well, you need to get converted. Oh, now you're converted. That's that. Let's go convert somebody else. Mm-hmm. And we failed at that critical task of discipleship, so that in 1999, George Barna said, there is no statistically significant difference between the lost and the saved. Their top 10 values are identical. Number one, material satisfaction. And so we then chose to be materially satisfied, and we said that the real principles of life don't matter. So life then becomes cheap, and you have the opportunity to choose what is simple and convenient and inexpensive, and babies are really expensive.
And so what you're talking about then is a really shallow version of Christianity, without any punch, without any vigor, without any strength.
Absolutely.
It's just very simple, straightforward. You believe in Jesus, great, that's it. We've taken care of that. Now let's move on and pursue material gain and all that kind of stuff. It reminds me of Hebrews 6, where the writer of Hebrews says, let us leave the elementary doctrine of Christ and go on to maturity, not laying again the same foundation we laid at the beginning, and press on to the fullness of Christ. And that's what you're saying the church did not do starting after World War II.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly what happened. And so we have made Christian faith into a consumer religion. What has Jesus done for me lately? And if he hasn't done enough, well, then I guess I'll go try some other product. Rather than the whole thing of lay down your lives, take up your cross, and follow me. Oh, that's not simple and convenient and inexpensive.
Yeah. Well, and it struck me that, there's so much criticism now of Christians today.
Oh, yes.
I talked to a guy yesterday on the phone. His bank kicked him out of the bank. You can't bank with us any longer. And his crime, his sin, is that he went into the bank, saw a gay pride flag in the banner, in the lobby, and respectfully asked the teller and then the manager of the bank, why is that flag, why are you flying that flag? There's a lot of causes that could be celebrated. Why are you picking that one? Wasn't belligerent, wasn't loud, wasn't obnoxious. And they said, well, if that's the way you feel about it, you cannot bank here anymore. And they closed his account and sent him packing. And what I wonder is, what I see in a lot of Christians is this desire to conform.
Yes.
Conform to the world. And Paul says, don't do that.
Yes.
Don't conform to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And we need to get back to some of that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. My book, Called to Be Holy, is really trying to make this point that holiness is not what we used to think, how you dress, those kinds of things. Holiness is a changed heart where Christ lives his life through us and relates to one another through us. And that's not bad news, that's good news.
Yeah, and you think of, holiness, people, I think, have an image of something stiff and kind of starchy and kind of buttoned down and all that kind of thing. And it's anything but.
Right. That's exactly right. Exactly right. So the price that we're paying in our nation is now coming home to bite us. And that, I don't think any of us dreamed 10 years ago things were going to move as fast as they have. I think all the indications are they're going to move faster. And we as Christians need then to truly bond together and support one another and encourage one another so that we can stand. Now, I think in some ways that's a good thing. I think a lot of nominal Christianity is going to disappear in the next 10 years.
Yeah, because reality is someone who's a nominal Christian is not going to be able to stand up against even a stiff breeze in the culture.
No,
They'll
not at
just
all.
fold and
Exactly.
fall over.
Oh, yeah. Again, this is not simple and convenient and inexpensive.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. We got a couple of minutes left, Doctor. Talking about Dr. John Oswalt, author of the new book, Called to Be Holy, which I recommend to you. Jesus taught us that we, as his disciples, are to be salt and light. Yes. So how is the church doing? What does it mean to be salt and light, and how are we doing with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the simple answer is the salt has lost its savor. There's nothing remarkable about us. There's nothing that sets us apart from our culture. And when Jesus said that, that was right in the context of what are often called the Beatitudes. As a child, when I was memorizing these in Sunday school, I often wondered, what are we supposed to be at here? But Jesus really is countercultural. He says, blessed are you if you're poor. Come on, Jesus. No. You're blessed if you're rich. Blessed are you if you're hungry. No, Jesus, no, you're blessed when you're full. Blessed are you if you mourn. Hey, wait a minute, what in the world are you talking about here? And Jesus is describing people who have chosen him at all costs and are willing to pay any price for his blessing in their lives. And man, those people are going to stand out. They're going to be light in a dark society. They're going to be salt on a bland food.
Well,
and we're not.
Yeah, and the world will go after them. Jesus also said in that same passage, blessed are you when men persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely. Doesn't count if it's true, but they'll persecute you because you're identified with me, and you got to be prepared to stand up against that.
Exactly. And that, again, what? I'm going to be happy if people call me a liar and a crook and everything else? Yes, if you've chosen me.
Yeah. And and people that have been through that, one of the things it does is it deepens your relationship with Christ because in part, the fellowship of the sufferings of Christ. I mean, you got to suffer to know that.
Yes.
And if you do because of Christ, then you enter into a level of fellowship you can't know any other way.
Exactly.
All right, our guest has been Dr. John Oswalt, Distinguished Professor of Old Testament. Got a brand new book out. I encourage you to pick up, Called to be Holy, A Biblical Perspective. And Dr. Oswalt, very quickly, what's the website where people can go to get more information?
Probably the best one is wbs.edu. I'm the interim president of Wesley Biblical Seminary, wbs.edu.
Well, thank you for being with us, Dr. Oswalt, and God bless you. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Focal Point, American Family Radio.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
Canada may soon make access to medication more difficult. A council advising on the possible creation of a national pharmaceutical program is recommending that Canada establish a universal single-payer government-run program for access to medications. The program would create an approved list of drugs. Like the Canadian single-payer health system, all Canadians could access these approved drugs for a simple $2 to $5 copay. A new government agency would be established to create the list of drugs, called the formulary, and to run the program. Unlike restrictions on access to other care, Canadians may be able to get drugs that are not on the approved list, either on their own or through their employer.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly E-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
Did you know that as a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign? You can designate a deduction each month to the organization of your choice, and AFA number 12037 is one of the few on the list fighting for your family. Help us continue to do so by designating your CFC contribution to 12037 when completing the CFC form in your payroll department.
AFR's own J.J. Jasper is a morning on-air personality, author, comedian, Christian, and family man. J.J.'s also a keynote speaker at banquets, men's ministry events, pregnancy center fundraisers, and more. Here's what others are saying.
JJ helped us set a record for the most funds raised at our banquet. This banquet was our best banquet ever, thanks to JJ Jasper.
Information on JJ's availability to speak at your event is at jjjasper.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I was finishing undergrad and got credit cards because I couldn't work full-time. So that started the credit card journey for me.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
And then when I got married, we combined our credit card debt and it became impossible to pay off on our own. At that point, I was like, I don't know where to turn. And then I found Trinity.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
I initially was scared to call, and immediately I felt relief. I mean, in a matter of 3 years, we've already paid down $20,000 in credit card debt, which is huge.
Call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio, the home of the fastest 60 minutes in American media. Looking at an article here about a research that was published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships. So these are psychologists, they're trained, they're educated, and they were shocked because they did this study of people and asked ordinary Americans, how interested would you be in dating a transgender person? And they found that 87.5% are not interested. 85% of Americans are not interested in dating somebody of the transgender persuasion. And they say this indicates, this demonstrates significant discrimination. No, it doesn't. It demonstrates significant common sense. That's what that demonstrates. All right, I don't know if you saw this story. There was a Ford dealer in Alabama. They promoted, if you came in and bought one of their four-wheelers, we'll give you a free shotgun, a free Bible, and a free American flag. And the Ford Motor Company called them up and said, you got to stop that. You don't have our permission to run an ad like that. We can't have people using the Ford label out there promoting the Bible and promoting the American flag and promoting hunting. Can't do it. So they had to pull that ad completely down.
Oh my goodness, I didn't hear about that. Yeah, they had to pull it, huh?
Pull it there, yeah. Ford made them pull it.
That was Chatham Ford.
Yeah. That's who it is. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, good folks. The owner's a big Mississippi State guy.
Ah, okay. Well, that explains Rob's interest. Well, no, you're an Ole Miss guy.
Yeah, but I'm Mississippi.
Yeah.
I'm Mississippi.
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 And that, by the way, is how you got to learn to say it. It's not Mississippi. It's Mississippi.
That's right.
Like you just drop out that second syllable.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's out of here. It's in the archive. We don't know where it went, but we chase it
I
right
promise.
off.
It's there.
You got to just listen real closely. All right. Michael Flynn's attorney, by the way, remember this is a guy's complete setup, a victim of the Mueller snipe hunt, didn't commit any crimes. He talked to Russian ambassadors like he's supposed to do. He was the incoming national security advisor. It was his job to talk to high-ranking diplomats and security people in other countries around the world. Now, he lied to federal investigators like the Andrew McCabe's and those types of the world. They set him up on this deal. They had listened to transcripts of his phone calls. They tapped his phones and listened to his exchanges with Kislyak, the Russian ambassador. So they set him up. They trapped him, got him in a perjury trap, asked him questions. He answered them the wrong way, and they had proof from the phone records, the taped conversations. And I think Flynn probably wasn't too sure what this was all about, trying to be sure that he was very careful, didn't want to admit anything that would send him to jail. Now, his attorney, he's got a new attorney now. Her name is Sidney Powell. She's terrific. She wrote a brand new book that has kind of called License to Lie, exposing a lot of the deception and corruption in the Obama administration. And she believes that the special counsel's office, that would be Bob Mueller, did not produce classified information that was relevant to his case. And remember, the prosecution has an obligation. I mean, it's a solemn obligation. It's a moral obligation. It's an ethical obligation. It is a legal obligation to divulge to the defense any exculpatory evidence they have in their possession. And what Sidney Powell is saying, they've got exculpatory evidence about my client. They've classified it. They won't release it to Mr. Flynn, General Flynn, so we can use it in his defense. So I think they're tangling with the wrong tigress on that deal. She's going to press that till she gets satisfaction. All right, back to the picture that I'm sure you've heard about, probably seen it. The father and his young daughter lying face down, drowned. I guess that's the Rio Grande River. I think it's on the Mexican side. But apparently they were trying to swim across the Rio Grande, illegal aliens, husband, wife, and daughter. And the husband, the father, and the young girl couldn't make it. They drowned trying to cross the river. She was able to get back to the Mexican side of the bank. But it's a true tragedy, absolute tragedy. And there they are laying face down in the water. And, of course, this is perfect for the left, because they can use it to beat up on Donald Trump. Because remember, everything is Donald Trump's fault. One way or another, everything is Donald Trump's fault. So let's listen to Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo, clip number 3. And by the way, just before we go into the soundbite, the point I want to make is, yes, we all ought to be moved by that picture. Anybody takes any kind of pleasure in that picture, something dead wrong with them. That ought to break our hearts that thing happens. But all the left has is emotion. That's all they have. Everything is feeling with them. So if they look at a picture and it stirs unpleasant feelings in them, then they've got to blame somebody, and they always blame conservatives. So because they feel certain feelings when they look at a picture, they attribute the blame for all of that to Republicans. They never think. They don't stop and think, well, is there a better way to look at this? Is there a more rational way to view this? And the answer is clearly yes. If you look at those two individuals drowning in the Rio Grande River, you say, what compassion would dictate, what do you do about this? How do you keep this kind of thing from ever happening again? That's what compassion, that's the question that compassion would ask. How can we stop this thing from ever happening again? And the answer is very simple. You insist that aliens, if they want to apply for asylum, that they do it in their home country, or they do it in Mexico. They can do it in Mexico because it's a safe country, or do it at one of our ports of entry. Come to some legal place where you can have your asylum request processed and considered. And if we insist that they do that, in other words, if we stop them when they're trying to come across the border, then they'll learn very quickly, the word will get through the entire immigrant community. Don't even try that. It's a bad idea. It's not going to work. And that's compassion. Why? Because you are saving the lives of who knows how many additional fathers and daughters who will not try to do something that foolish and that dangerous again. But if all you do is just blame Donald Trump for something he's not responsible for, then you haven't helped the child, you haven't helped the family, and all you've done is just heap scorn on somebody who is innocent of the charges. You know, they're getting after Donald Trump for conditions in these migrant facilities. And I don't know if you saw this, but you probably saw this story about a business by the name of Wayfair. And Wayfair, I don't know exactly what they do, but I think they're sort of an Amazon for furniture or something like that. And they sold furniture to one of these migrant detention centers on the southern border, and their employees protested, said, we do not want you to sell beds to these detention centers. In other words, you parse what they're saying is we do not want the children of illegal immigrants that are stuck in those wretched conditions, we don't want them sleeping on beds, because that's what they bought from Wayfair. We want them sleeping on the concrete floor. We want them sleeping in filth. That's what these employees were saying. Again, that's why I tell you there is no rationality with them. We can't reason with these people. We can't discuss things with them. We can't debate them. We can only defeat them. Debate will accomplish nothing. Discussion will accomplish nothing. They cannot be debated. They must be defeated, plain and simple. And the Wayfair employees, they staged a walkout because, horror of horrors, their company was trying to provide beds for illegal immigrant children that everybody is complaining about and sobbing and weeping over. So they staged a walkout. I mean, if you can believe that. Now, here's the other part of the story that the media will not tell you. These mattresses were sold on June 13 to a charity group that works as a federal contractor managing some of the camps along the southern border. The name of this charity is the nonprofit Baptist Child and Family Services. This is who purchased the beds to use in ministering to migrant children. Now, back in 2014, Time magazine did a whole profile on President Obama's relationship with the head of this charity. President Obama was the one that befriended them, that supported them, turned them into one of the biggest players in the government's response to the influx of unaccompanied illegal alien children. But the media does not want you to know that at the root of these detention centers is Barack Obama. They want you to think that Donald Trump dreamed this up, that Donald Trump is the one that implemented it, that all of the evil Everything sinister going on in these places, somehow that's the brainchild of President Trump. All right, let's go to clip number 3. This is Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo.
Sorry, that picture, I can't even look at it.
You must.
I can't even look at it, Chris. Every time it comes up, I have to look away. I can't. And I'm not being dramatic. It's just
dramatic.
Of
course it kills you. It kills every part of you. Every part of us that makes us human. This issue, not since what I saw during the war that was being ignored here at home, has something ripped at me and made me feel like I'm not doing the job right. When we get to a point where you look at a dead kid and a daddy and you say, that's on them. That's a cold place that I don't want to be, and I don't get.
So Chris Cuomo is perfectly happy to say that's on Trump, even though Donald Trump had nothing to do with it, even though Donald Trump is asking for more money to build additional detention centers and provide better care for these migrants. It is the Democrats that refuse to cooperate.
Yeah, I have a question, Brian, and I think you can answer this. Why has Donald Trump not done anything on the border?
One word. Democrats.
That's right. They are the
ones.
ones.
2 words.
Yeah.
Democrats and judges.
There you go.
They have shortstopped every single thing that he's tried to do. So if you're looking for somebody to blame, Chris Cuomo, why don't you start with the Democrats in Congress that will not authorize the money that it takes to build increased numbers of detention centers and provide them with beds from places like Wayfair. All right, let's go to Joe Scarborough, clip number 4. And the best thing you can do is to prevent humanitarian crises like this by making it impossible for people to sneak into the country. If they can't get in, they're not going to try dangerous stunts like this and put them and their children at risk. That's the most compassionate thing you can do, is build a wall. If you care about these people that you saw in the photograph, then build the wall. Support the building of the wall. All right, clip number 4. Joe Scarborough, talking about the same picture, and he's waxing eloquent as the theologian that he is.
And it's shocking. These are people that perhaps they've never read about the Good Samaritan in Bible study, or perhaps they've never read Luke 17:2, where Jesus talks about that if you do a child harm, it's better that a millstone be wrapped around your neck and you be thrown bottom of the ocean. Or when Jesus talked about when people were pushing children away because they were beneath Jesus, Jesus said, let the little children come. And I'm not here saying let the little children and their extended families come to America illegally. I've always said we are a nation of laws. And the first thing you should do when you come to America should not be illegal. But if we now are closing the gates to this country for even those seeking asylum, and then callously saying that because their skin is brown, that they mean less to Jesus, mean less to God than white kids, that is a perverted and twisted faith that has absolutely no connection to what Jesus taught in the Gospels.
He refers to the Good Samaritan, and apparently it's been a while since Joe Scarborough has read the story of the Good Samaritan. In Luke chapter 10, when Jesus tells this story, the Good Samaritan is the guy that comes alongside the fallen Levite and ministers to him. And it says this, he had compassion on him. He went to him. He didn't outsource it to somebody. He went to him, bound up his wounds, pouring out oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. He did that, didn't outsource that to anybody. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. So he provided for the needs of this wounded traveler out of his own pocket, out of his own resources. Didn't demand the government do it, said that's my job. That's it for today. Bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap. Never forget, we are fighting winnable wars for you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
The sexual revolution has falsely promised to satisfy the human heart.
God has a better way.